Hi everybody, my name is Ellen from the Trailhead Homestead and welcome back to On the Garden Path, a series where we take you all over Alaska and other places in the north to explore community gardens and other cooperative agriculture systems. Today we're going down to the native village of Eklutna, just north of Anchorage, Alaska, to see how they aim to feed the 200 people that live in the native village with their garden, a greenhouse, hugelkultur, and a new hydroponics system. It's a lofty goal, but they're well on their way after a couple of years of hard work. I'm so excited to see how this is going to work out. So if you're ready to learn more, let's go. Hi everybody, we're here in Eklutna at their community garden, and can you tell us what your name is and what your position here is in Eklutna Garden?
My name is Mark Canberra, and I'm the farm manager, garden manager for Eklutna Tribal Conservation District. I'm a contracted employee, so I'm here for another couple of years to build their hydroponics, greenhouse, and a 1-acre food forest facility.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So you've given us a little bit of a tour of the garden and the hydroponics area, and what I've seen is very cool. Can you give us a little bit of an overview of what a community garden is and how this functions?
I'm actually one of 2 employees for the garden. My daughter is the other one. She's the outreach education person. We are going to be providing food for the community first. So the hydroponics, once it comes online, and the greenhouse, and then the beds here, all the food will go to community first, and then we'll do Saturday markets after that. My initial funding came from Connect Grant for the garden itself, but then we were also funded by the Alaska Conservation Foundation and their program called Resilient Farms, and that's the educational side of it, and also extra little bit of money for some of the odds and ends, but it's mainly education, food for the community, and then getting folks on the food security side of stuff. Also APU and Seeds of Change in Anchorage are our immediate partners for education.
Very cool. So education, do you do workshops? Is that what the education covers?
Yeah, we are to do several workshops together as a group with all 3 entities that we've already done. A lot of business ones. I did one earlier this spring, but we have like a total of 5 we do together per year. And then each week or every couple of weeks I try to do something here as well. APU does their own stuff, and so does Seeds of Change. They all have their own little gardens, and so they do individual gardening classes, composting, things like that.
Can you tell me a little bit what the long-term goal is? You said you were on a 2-year contract. What are the long-term goals for this garden? How is it going to be operational?
This garden is actually situated on a total of 4 acres. I am sitting on 1 here, and this is our first round, our test facility. So we'll eventually try to expand for educational purposes. We want to partner with APU, a Pratt Institute as well, to try to get some technical stuff in here as well, to folks can learn how to build these units for remote locations, because we want to be able to have them see this and be able to bring it out to remote locations as well. Our bigger plans here is that we're looking at a larger facility on the other side near the power generation, so we can capture the heat. That's what we're doing here as well. We're also looking at cloning facilities so that we can capture cloning across the state, so people don't have to ship stuff up from the lower 48. I intend to actually be able to provide those things like the cherry trees, or even the forestry side. I'm on the agricultural side, but also Eklutna is looking on the forestry side of it as well. So they want to do that. The education system will be here as well, along with a larger facility, garden, food forest, once they get the grasp of the concept of what we're doing here.
Very cool. So you've got your fingers in a lot of pies, and all of these organizations working together. It sounds like there's a lot of plans going on. Tell us a little bit about how you got invited in to do this. How did you start, and what was the process of getting this garden started?
You know, it actually wasn't too hard. They advertised for the position on Facebook, and I just happened to answer it. I was working for the correctional facility at the time, and so I came in and I said, well, did the interview with my bosses, and they said excellent, and so I started, and they showed me the location. We staked it out. You probably can still see some of the
there are some flags around here,
still
yes.
out there, and they had a guy come in. They asked me, well, how do you want them to clear it? I said, just push everything to the sides. And I will deal with the logs. I told them about hugelkulturs and stuff like that, so we can capture everything from the site and just regenerate it and have our food right off of that.
So you've made a flat spot basically, but you are keeping all of this naturally decomposing material,
Yes.
and you're building hugelkultur, which
Correct.
some of our viewers may have heard about before. It's an up and coming thing.
Yes.
Explain what that is.
Hugelkultur is actually from Germany. They've used it for hundreds of years. They just build a mound. It's just basically a mound culture is what they call them. You just put all your waste products in there, layer it, and then you can plant on it. The wood takes time to decompose. It partners with mycorrhizae so that they break down the wood and they exchange it with the plants, nutrients, so that you don't really have to put a lot of like NPK. I don't use any unnatural fertilizers here. I feed the soil so that it feeds the plants. That's one of the biggest things. It's also, this particular bed is basically another way of saying lasagna gardening.
That's another form of it,
It's
yes.
just basically take a hugelkultur and you flatten it out, because everybody starts with cardboard and wood. So then
And
all your other layers go on top of that.
You
It's kind
start
of like
layering.
what you do out in the forest. It's almost mimicking exactly what
Yeah,
happens in
trees
in
will
nature.
let their leaves fall and cover, and it layers up and it
And
starts
dead wood
decomposing
falls down
slowly.
and the same thing, so yeah.
So when your garden is fully producing and when you get it where you want it to, how much produce do you think do you gain?
Quite a bit. We just worked with the Space Institute and we figured out the conics can do about 2,000 meals in completion. So we can have 100 meals a day just out of
Okay.
that unit.
Meals, are we talking salads? Are we talking
Green, or like the
calories?
little microgreens, so like an ounce, so that's kind of how they're doing a meal. So
Okay.
we're looking at that as a high production level. But I have about 5,000 square feet of production out here at the moment. I haven't gotten quite that far on the level of it, but I know that I'll be able to supply the village itself, because I think there's 200 folks that live here.
Okay.
So we're looking at that production, and then whatever we do outside of that will go to either Saturday markets or we'll sell to the Native Hospital as well. They're looking at those kind of items, but community first. So over 200 meals a day is where we would be sitting.
For a season, for a couple of months, for the whole year?
It'll be the whole year, but the hydroponics will continue to produce through the winter.
Oh, okay.
So they'll get mainly greens and things like that through the winter, but then summertime we'll have all the variety that we can do out here in the garden.
And through the winter is an especially important point in Alaska,
Yes.
where you just can't, there's no winter gardening.
No,
There's
no,
not
it's
really.
all indoor.
Yes. Excellent.
Yeah.
And it looks like it's been working great for you. What do you have planted this year?
I have a lot of stuff planted,
lot of stuff.
and a lot of stuff more planted, or planned to be planted as well. I'm also partnered with the Space Institute, and she's got all kinds of native plants as well. But I have cherries, I have plums, I have garlic, I have strawberries, I have kohlrabi, I have bok choy, broccoli,
Right
cabbage,
behind us, we
I
have a whole
wormwood,
lot.
I have rhubarb,
Excellent.
Sudan grass, I have all the little carrots, radishes, beets.
So can you tell us a little bit about what were the motivations for starting this garden in the first place? Also your personal motivations. Where do you come from in your passion for gardening?
Food security.
Food security.
Originally the grants were done in like 2019 before COVID hit. They were wanting to get this online ahead of time. It was Kinnick, the tribe of Kinnick, Eklutna, and one other, I think it might have been Chickaloon, that were in this grant to build a facility like this at each location for food security, and to also help each other take these models and help other villages and locations that needed the food security that are underserved. So that's kind of where the initial thoughts were coming from. Stephen, Holly, who is one of the board of directors, and Mark Lamorix, who was my direct boss for Eklutna, had the vision to want to feed the people. They just didn't have that knowledge range, and so when I came along, I've been gardening since I was 5. I had first place when I was 7, 8 at the state fair in California. With
Excellent.
my flowers and pumpkins. My dad and grandparents were all food forests because they all came from Portugal, and they brought a lot of stuff. He taught me how to graft when I was little, so I've had a passion since I was young. My passion is to get folks be able to do like a food forest, but maybe more like a portage garden, like my grandparents did in the day, where you had most of the items in your own backyard. You know, from fruit to medicine to some of the herbs and things like that, even, you know, 50 pounds of potatoes that you can grow in your own backyard.
So for folks who are watching who are outside of Alaska maybe, or are not locals, it may be a little hard to understand why it's difficult to go to a grocery store. Out here in remote villages, this is not so much remote, but in villages and in remote places, why is it difficult? Why are we focusing on food security?
Well, like a gallon of gas a gallon of gas is $6, but a gallon of milk is like $8 a gallon. A loaf of bread could be $5, $6, $7 for a loaf of bread. Fruit out there is even worse. You may get the fruit, but it's been through shipping, it's sat, it's not up, you know, it's not really that good. You spend a lot. It's a pound. For a pound is like $1 per pound. So if you buy an orange and it's a pound and you spent $3, $4 on it, well, you're paying another $1 just to get it home. So it's very expensive out there, and the further you are, the more expensive it is, like Quinnahock and some locations like that. To have a system like this where they can supplement those greens, most of them would be like the microgreens and things like that, so that they have all the nutrition in them. They can get that produce at half the cost. So we're looking at trying to get them to get those items where they're not so expensive. You know, people can get to them where they're not, you know, $10 for a couple of oranges and an apple and such. So,
yeah, we want that nutrient-dense food that is also really accessible.
Yes.
So talk to me a little bit about how do the day-to-day chores get done? How does this work get done? We have some funding from these organizations that you've mentioned.
90% of it would be my own input. I bring my kids come and help most of the time. I have some volunteers that come and help me do work. One of them is John Parker. So he comes out. I've known him since he was 9. He helped me build all of these beds. I do get help from APU occasionally and Seed to Change when they're not so busy. We do have volunteers come in, but most of it's just myself and my daughter that do most of the work out here. Got a little tractor and 90% of it right there.
So the organization pays you, and then the food, you've already said, it goes to the community. How does that exchange happen? Is there a market that's limited to the community, or do you deliver to their houses? How does that work?
Actually, we have the food bank.
The food
Our
bank.
little facility here is a little food bank for our community. So the food will go right to the food bank.
Straight to the food bank.
Carrie, who you met earlier today, she'll send folks messages and just say, hey, we have fresh food. You guys want to come down, grab some fresh stuff, or they're welcome to come to the garden once it's open or when I'm actually in production, and they can harvest as well.
Excellent.
I'll generally let my boss know that these are ready and they can come in and harvest. They want to take care of that stuff.
And there's a message that goes out to the community saying, we're ready to harvest, come and get it.
Come get it.
Excellent.
Yeah.
You have usually very positive feedback, a lot of participation in
This
that?
is my first year with production.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, yep.
Well,
This was my first getting stuff planted. The hydroponics we should have online by September, I'm hoping. We'll start to get those first harvests out of that. So,
excellent. So we talked a little bit about the cost. How much money does it cost to maintain your and your daughter's work and to fund this?
I have done very well on the outside part by donations, utilizing everything that's here. I haven't spent very much on the outside. Labor is probably the most expensive part of it. I've kept my expenses here and trying to save the monies for the hydroponics, power, water that has to come in, the greenhouse that still is going to go up. So the initial funding was back in COVID time, so that's why I've saved most of the money just for the production of that, because that's really important. When Alaska Conservation Foundation came in, they gave us a blanket kind of grant, no strings attached, but it was more towards the education and what we were doing. And so that also will be spent in this area, and then like a good portion of it was for transportation and education.
Have there been any really unexpectedly positive impacts that you did not see?
Well, actually, most of it.
Most of it?
Yeah, I've
Great.
actually been very happy how this turned out, because, you know, you can I've designed it on paper, but until you get it in and you get it going, people don't know what's going to happen. And so just seeing the garlic this year has made me so super happy, and the other plants all kind of coming around. So it's like all that work is starting to show, and just how the healthy the plants are and things like that. So my bosses are super happy.
Great.
They come out and like, oh, this is really happening. So Mark was my direct boss. He came out just to visit when I was doing the potato stuff, and so he was really impressed, because it's been better part of probably 10 years that they've been trying to get this going.
Excellent.
And so
yeah.
they were really happy. It's like, wow, it's finally happening.
How's the feedback from Eklutna community been?
They are starting to realize it's happening. As they see more, actually, the lady across the street, her daughter, she came to one of the little events, and I said, I said, you can pick a whole bed that's all yours. You want to put flowers in there? I said, this garden is your garden. I said, you can come and pick it. I said, if you guys want to water, you guys can water. You want to run around out here, that's excellent. Because that's kind of how my dad was when I was about that age. It's like, here's this area. I'm going to give you a hose and a bunch of seeds, and just have fun. I asked her about my little paths and stuff, like, does this path look good to run up and go around the corner and stuff? So she's like, yeah, I like that. I'm like, perfect.
Excellent.
Yes.
Have there been any unexpected disappointments?
It's been rough trying to get our little hydroponic unit kind of going. Just our soils and the expenses that initially were, it's the soils, they'll sink. So we've had to do some modifications on that to make sure we could get it in properly.
It didn't work out quite the way that you had initially expected?
Right. Yep. It would have been nice to have a contractor do it and just walk away from it. We're actually got it down pretty good, and we've got a few folks that are finishing it up, and we have a design now. So we're just...
Excellent.
Yeah, it took about 2 years to get it all settled.
Have you seen a really positive impact on the community or any individuals coming in here, on their mental health, on their well-being?
I've actually had a few folks that come out. One, John Parker, he loves gardening, likes doing all this, getting his hands in the dirt. Also, I've had volunteers from the community who are mentally challenged or socially outcast, or whatever you may want to call it. But I invite them into my garden. I was like, everybody's welcome to come in, help me dig in the dirt, help me do stuff. It's good for folks to get their hands dirty and be in nature and stuff like that. Like John, he works maintenance, and he's like, I'm inside all day, but when I come out here, I can work all day long, and it's just different.
As we're wrapping up a little bit, can you give any advice to people who may want to do something like this in their own communities, in their maybe remote villages, maybe a town down south in the lower 48? If they want to start a community garden in the same framework that you do, what advice would you give them?
Do a little research first. Make sure you know what you're getting yourself into. Always look for what you want to put in the garden. Look at your community and kind of ask, like here we asked the community what they wanted in their garden. I haven't put anything that they didn't want in here. So that's a big part of it, because what are they going to eat? You want to give them something they're going to eat. You don't want to give them Brussels sprouts if they're not going to eat them. Or lots of zucchini, which I'll probably do. Research is always good, and then plan. Take the time to plan your sites, because if you go to put in a garden and you didn't look at how much sun that spot gets, and you put a full sun plant in there and it only gets 2 or 3 hours of sunshine, well, you've automatically failed. So do a little research on and planning your site, where the sun is, how much water you have, where plants do best at. I have many zones here, so it's a process of getting the plants in the right spots. You can reach out to other organizations like ourselves, other garden master gardeners, permaculturalists. I am currently a permaculturalist. Design and planning. Before I even set foot, I was in this area for a year before I really started to design stuff, watching the sun fall, when it's all going to be, how much sun it's going to be in the fall time.
It's an important point that you made about to be here in this space before you've done anything, before you have touched what the natural space is, to know where your sun is, what the temperatures are,
where your little microclimates
the weather
might be. Observation is number one thing that you do in permaculture, but I think even in life and in general, you should observe what's going on right around you before you go and make big changes.
Especially important when you're perhaps an outsider coming into a community, a native community especially. pay attention to what they have, what they don't have, what they need, and what they want.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for joining me and spending our time outside in this lovely garden. For people who want to contact you directly, can they, and how should they contact you?
You can get a hold of me at eklutnagarden@gmail.com. That's one of the best ways. If you have questions, I'm happy to answer. Might take me a day or two, but don't fret, I'll get back to you.
For those who want to support you and support the community, where can they go?
I would actually get a hold of the Alaska Conservation Foundation. Aaron Poe is the person that I directly work with and who is funding our efforts here. You can say Eklutna Garden, and it's also part of Resilient Farms. So we're part of year 1 of that program, and we hope that it goes on year after year now. So we hope to reach a lot more people, and so with any of that kind of assistance, having more folks come in and talk about it and talk to him, that shows them that we're doing a great job. And then also the Novo Foundation, who was the secondary grant writers for us, shows them that we're doing our jobs and that we're out here trying to help folks, food security, teaching people what they need to do to have a garden. And even starting small, just even a small little container garden. Step 1.
Step 1.
Yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for talking with us, and I'll leave all of those links down in the description. And for now, we'll catch you in the next garden.
Awesome.
Thank you so much.
Guys. Thank you.
Thanks so much for watching, everyone. If you like this video, then like, comment, and subscribe. It helps us reach more people who will find this information helpful. We do all of this work out of pocket, so if you want to support us and make sure more of these videos get made, check out our merch store and buy one of our eco-friendly t-shirts or sweatshirts. All links are down in the description below. Thanks again, and we hope to see you in the next one. Bye!